Chapter 1. You are listening at FameTV.info. I don't know whether it's a loss or a good thing. What kind of material is this jade brand made of? It's like jade, not jade. In an old small suite, Zhang Xiaoyu picked up the jade plate hanging around his neck and carefully observed it. From time to time, he bit it with his mouth or played it with his fingers. Zhang Xiaoyu is an internet writer who writes fast food to earn money. He can earn 2,000 or 3,000 yuan a month. He rents this old suite for 800 yuan a month. As for his own house, it may be in a few decades. And I don't know if Zhang Xiaoyu is evil. This afternoon, by chance, Zhang Xiaoyu spent 333 yuan to buy this jade card at the gadget stall at the door. At that time, the boss kept on saying, "Young man, you've earned it. This jade card is not a thing of the world. It's from the sky. If I hadn't sold it for several years, I wouldn't have sold it to you so cheaply." Zhang Xiaoyu curled his mouth. When the boss talks nonsense, how can it be that he falls from the sky, unless it's something that someone throws from the plane? Back in the rented suite, Zhang Xiaoyu pondered over the jade card. The more you think about it, the more wrong it is. You won't be fooled by your boss. But at that time, he did hear the jade plate calling for him, and then he went over and picked it up to ask the price. If it was not the boss's evil method, or he stayed up late these days to write about his neurasthenia and hallucination. Thinking of staying up late to write, Zhang Xiaoyu is in pain. I update more than 10,000 words every day, which can be regarded as a high-yield writer. However, those readers urged me to update more and threatened that I would not subscribe to more updates. Mom, isn't that killing him? Readers are his parents. No one subscribes to them, but they are really laid off. When they go home, they can only grow and live a hard life. How can this jade card play so well? As soon as Zhang Xiaoyu's fingers hurt, he fixed his eyes on them. Suddenly, he was scared out of his wits. The jade plate is carved with an image that looks like a human being but not a human being. According to Zhang Xiaoyu's understanding, it is the magic god in the fantasy. At this moment, the originally carved magic god suddenly opened his eyes, and the blood red with a little purple demonic eyes tightly looked at Zhang Xiaoyu, and the tusk mouth of the magic god suddenly stretched out, biting Zhang Xiaoyu's index finger. "Boss, don't bite me. I have an old dog to raise. What do they do when I die?" "Oh, how can you still suck blood?" Soon, Zhang Xiaoyu was not afraid, because he had fainted due to excessive blood loss. Yupai absorbs enough blood, and suddenly emerges a little dark red hair, which gradually expands and finally turns into a dark red light, wrapping Zhang Xiaoyu inside. From the outside, you can only see a dark red light ball. In the sky above the small suite, a lot of dark clouds gather from all directions, covering the clear sky, dazzling sunshine. The whole world is dark. The storm is coming, let's go. Although the pedestrians on the street outside are strange, the weather can change, but they feel the strange atmosphere of the sudden change of heaven and earth. Everyone seems to be aware of the arrival of death, and they don't want to stay here for a second, and they flee in panic. For a moment, the dark clouds in the sky were as thick as water, so low and terrible. I raised my head for fear that it would be pressed down by accident. At this time, all the sounds disappeared, so calm and terrible. Boom, a dull sound came from the sky, the dark clouds above the head spun quickly, and soon formed a huge vortex connecting the sky and the earth. In the dark whirlpool, thunder is shining, electric snakes are crisscrossing, and there is a sound from the inside. Who awakened me, thousands of years or tens of thousands of years? The huge voice, like a low roar from the mouth of the ancient giant god, came from another world. For a long time, the voice came with a little surprise. It's my Tiandu jade card. Boy, you are also predestined. Let me send you back to the original world." A huge palm, which can't see the edge at all, stretched out from the end of the whirlpool and grabbed it out of thin air. The whole world was in a violent light, as if dozens of times of sunlight suddenly burst out, and the sky and the earth were shining. The amazing scene comes and goes quickly. When the dark clouds disperse and the sun shines on the earth again, the world will return to normal again. No one knows that Zhang Xiaoyu in the original small suite disappeared with the jade plate, as if he had never appeared. On the second day, the headlines of all major media published, "Is the world different? Is it a sign of the end of the world?" People who had experienced that night immediately became the hot cakes of the major media, and were invited to interview and ask questions on TV one after another. Of course, these have nothing to do with Zhang Xiaoyu. At the moment, he doesn't know where he is. Huangshe town is located on a small oasis in the Dunhuang Desert. The population of a small town is no more than 100 or 200 people. Because of its good geographical location, people will not suffer from starvation. Of course, it will not be too good. After all, in this boundless desert, water shortage is a problem everyone has to face. In a simple tavern on the edge of the town, a few strong men drank their own crude wine, grabbed the unknown animal meat from the plate and stuffed it into their mouths. Their mouths were full of meat crumbs. "Ma, why is the desert rat so light, shopkeeper?" One of the scarred men frowned and slapped the table. On the dilapidated counter, the old man, half squinting and dozing, was awakened. He came over with a smile and said, "I'm sorry, this year's sandstorm came early, and the salt carriers haven't come back." "Well, if it's too salty, it's easy to be thirsty." Next to the rough man advised. Seeing that the scar man was no longer noisy, the shopkeeper wiped his sweat and looked out at the desert scenery. He said in his heart, "This day is getting more and more sad, and I don't know if I can go outside the desert in my lifetime. Alas! It's a pity that if the sandstorm didn't break out ahead of time, the injured lizard would not be in the bag." Another bald one. The man drank a mouthful of wine, depressed way. The rough man also shook his head and sighed. The armored lizard is the most valuable one among the first class wild animals. Its claws are extremely hard, its eyes can cure fire poison, and its skin can be made into scabbard. It's worth at least 10 liang of silver. It's enough for friends to be free for a few days. The more people think about it, the more uncomfortable they feel. They stare at the restaurant intentionally or unintentionally. In the shade outside the restaurant, a thin young man shrank there, wrapped in dirty rags that could not see the color clearly, and his bright eyes longed to stare at the food on several hands. "You want to eat, kid?" The bald man pulled out a piece of meat from the plate and said with a smile. The thin and weak boy didn't speak, but his eyes lit up when he looked at the piece of meat. "Casually throw in front of the feet," bald man grinning. "To eat, come and get." Licking the dry lips, the thin boy hesitated to take a look at several people, got up from the ground, and came unsteadily. Seeing the animal meat close at hand, the young man didn't care about anything else anymore, so he grabbed it. He got up and bit hard. Bang, kick fly youth, bald man damn, really eat. The other two laughed, and it was a pleasure to bully people in the desert. His body rolled and he was kicked out of the restaurant. The boy wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and devoured the delicious animal meat. His eyes hidden under the messy hair were murderous and confused. After eating the meat, the boy returned to the place where he had been lying, looking at the sky indifferently. What happened? How did I come to this unknown world? This body should be called Pony's body. Of course, Pony has died and collapsed in the desert dozens of miles outside Huangshe town. After Zhang Xiaoyu passed out in a coma, he felt that he had come to a dreamlike passage, surrounded by colorful streamers and twisted lights. However, he seemed to be moving forward very fast, and the jade card did not know what to integrate into his body and disappeared. When he opened his eyes again, his body was no longer his original body, but the body of a strange boy, thin and unbearable. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.